It's funny to see them backpedal because now the argument is, oh, well, of course I knew the prices of these goods were going to go up. An avocado was $1 before. It'll be $1.25 now. They're trying to use a very relatively inexpensive thing, but if you were to multiply that, let's say, by a $500 good, cars, your insurance, like whatever it might be, all of those things are going to go up because of input costs that go in.
And I don't know about anyone else, but I'm certainly not getting a 25% increase in any of the income I'm making. Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Ansley, and these are my fun coworkers, Tess and Gabe. And today we have a lot to talk about. There was a video of a compilation of a bunch of federal workers who were recently laid off, and they go over and talk about their jobs. And one of them is, he's like, I worked at Yosemite, and I would pick up cigarette butts, the dirty diapers, the things you never get to see, and like now I'm useless. And how can we help? Like, what actually can we do? Because voting obviously isn't enough anymore.
Right.
But also you can't speak up. But also you can't take a stand. So what do we do? Hang upside down American flags from every major freeway in the country?
Like, a lot of other countries, I think, sometimes will look at America and be like, why aren't you guys revolting? I do think that people would like to, and there are protests and things like that happening. But I kind of stand by my opinion that this country is too goddamn big, and it's like very hard to have a revolution to coordinate this much land and this much people. Like, it's very easy, even if people are having protests or like revolting in like every major city, it really does just feel like we can just be ignored very easily.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like France, where it's like if Paris has gone up in flames, it's like, well, we can't ignore that.
Right.
Like,
yeah, you can ignore if LA burns to the ground.
It really, I think what it ultimately comes down to is that you have to be loud all the time. In the sense that, like, if things are happening, you have to speak up. If things are, an injustice is happening, you have to document it. I mean, that's why I feel like, the summer of 2020 and leading into the election, things were so effective because a lot of things were now being brought up to the surface in terms of what had to be discussed. There's a thing it's the Swiss cheese model, which is if you layered a bunch of Swiss cheese together, you have holes in random spots. And if things were to go through these holes, they would eventually hit a flat surface or ultimately go through another hole, right? Because none of them match up in the same way.
Right.
And so the courts, the press, that's like the first layer. And what gets through there, because right now you have a ton of lawsuits that are going against Doge, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, a lot of these cuts that are happening, and that's like the first line of defense. And ultimately, the goal of the Trump administration and Project 2025 and the Federal Society is to get through where you puncture enough holes where you no longer have the first one, and all you have are loyalists who stick around. And then there's a next line and the next line and the next line. And that's what they're trying to do with all these departments and agencies where they're like, we're going to mass fire all the people who were just happened to be assigned to investigating Donald Trump with the records or the crimes that he committed or whatever it is. But it really is, it ultimately comes down to accountability and like protests, make it loud, call people's attention to it, relate it back. I mean, I think the biggest question we can ask ourselves to people who are like, I voted for Trump because they made prices lower. Okay, great. They made a promise that they were going to lower the price of eggs, and they haven't done a single thing. On day one, and even the first week, Donald Trump signed executive orders that did nothing to lower the cost of grocery prices or the gas. What's happening is you have all of these other MAGA idiots out there going like, oh, we got to get rid of trans people. And trans people just want to live their life and be left alone.
It's like I don't know what hills and who is picking them for them to die on, but it is like, these are like, I remember in 2015 when I was like coming into adolescence and I was like, oh, these are issues that people talk about, and then gay marriage was legalized and I was like, great, done with that.
Right.
No one has to think about that again.
Yeah.
What? And speaking of, I mean, with all the federal layoffs going on, what's this thing about Elon Musk asking everyone for their 5 big, what they do this week? What did they do at work this week?
Yeah.
Where you're like, what did you do, Elon?
Yeah.
I just want to say, this is like unrelated to all this, but I feel like a lot of people who like Elon Musk will be like, oh, but he's like such a good businessman, or like he runs his business as well. I did recruiting in San Francisco for tech companies, and Tesla was one of the easiest companies to steal employees from because it was so bad to work there.
There are so many lawsuits, sexual harassment lawsuits at SpaceX, Tesla, everyone that Elon has worked. There is a trail that follows him and the people that like put him up. I mean, right now there's a lot of people who are having buyer's remorse of owning just Teslas on their own.
Yeah.
But Elon and his idea of like send me 5 things is illegal, and it's harassment and it's intimidation. And from Friday, I think the 21st, up until yesterday or even this morning, they've gone from send me 5 things, and it was also from a tweet. It said, that's what started. It was in a tweet that said, Donald Trump's request to be more aggressive. You're going to get an email from the OPM HR email account, and it's going to ask you 5 things. Send us 5 bullet points. If you don't respond, it's going to count as a resignation. If you never saw that tweet, because there's nothing about a resignation in the actual email that was sent, if you never saw the tweet or follow Elon along, you'd have no idea. But as the days went on, people started trolling Elon, and the email got out. So it was, hr@opm.gov or whatever it was, ended up getting leaked. So everyone started sending movie scripts. People started sending gibberish, lines of code,
as they should.
all this stuff. And then by Monday, yesterday, as of filming this, he was like, okay, well, this was just like a trivial thing. It shouldn't have been this whole big thing. And he backpedaled so hard after being completely made fun of.
I think that making fun of them is a helpful
Oh,
line
yeah.
of defense.
Yes.
It really hurts their feelings a lot, and it's like it makes them seem like less serious people. And I feel like, first of all, hurt their feelings. Great, but I think that making them seem like less serious people, it like takes away the legitimacy of
Yeah.
some of the things that they're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
And like, if you don't, I think that, I don't know, this is something that has actually kind of worked in the past.
Oh, I mean, mocking is great. Mocking is a great way to make
Honestly?
them emotionally respond and make fools of themselves.
Yeah. So keep making them feel bad. Bullying works.
And that's what we do
Bring
here at
back
Boardwalk.
bullying.
Yeah.
I like it. And then the final thing we wanted to kind of touch on is the tariff war, the trade war and tariffs.
MAGA, you dumb as fuck. You bought this on this idea that 25% gets passed on to the country. No, it gets passed on to the person importing, which is the company, and the company goes, well, I'm not going to pay the 25%. I'm going to offset that cost somehow, and it typically comes in the final price of the good that you buy. That's why when it comes to the price of eggs or the price of retail clothing, whatever it might be, those things coming in from China, the 10% tariff, a proposed 25% tariff from Mexico and Canada, though it's on pause because they got Donald Trump to fall back on his threat for 30 days at least. But it does nothing. We have the North American Fair Trade Agreement, or is now known as another agreement, but we have this thing where we have allies. Canada, the friendliest ally we have there.
I feel like we're losing all of our
Yeah.
allies. We have none.
No one trusts us. No one wants to hang out with us. I'm so glad that Canada beat America in the hockey
Me
game
too.
the other day.
Me too.
It's just, you do not pick fights with the people who are your biggest trading allies as a means of making sure that America's strong. You could do that in so many other ways. And now we're aligning ourselves with Putin and anti-Ukraine and this and that. And it's like these tariffs are going to be the first domino among many that will hurt this country economically. And at the end of the day, you're going to see things that happened from the last 4 years under Biden where you're like, great, some of the stuff is finally taking effect.
And then he's going to...
And I mean, it's the same thing that happened when he took over in 2016. And then as we neared COVID, it was like, boom, all of that growth that was established in the 12 years or the 8 years prior by Obama is just quickly kicked
So-
off the table.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about politics on this podcast probably for hours and hours and hours. I guess I want to wrap up the tariff conversation. That seemed to be like a really big talking point for a lot of MAGA, especially going into this election. So how did they get it that wrong?
They didn't understand and they didn't listen. And it's funny to see them backpedal because now the argument is, oh, well, of course I knew the prices of these goods were going to go up, but only by 25%. And the argument that they make is, well, an avocado was $1 before. It'll be $1.25 now.
Avocados are like, I think $5 for
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'm
again,
like, what are
that
you
that
talking
goes
about?
that goes to show you their bad faith argument is they're trying to use a very relatively inexpensive thing in the sense they're saying it's only $1, so only $1.25. But if you were to multiply that, let's say, by a $500 good or a $1,000 good, well, your cars, your insurance, like whatever it might be, all of those things are going to go up because of all of the other input costs that go in. are
Yeah.
going up.
And I don't know about anyone else, but I'm certainly not getting a 25% increase in any of the income I'm making. And I don't think anyone, I mean, the federal minimum wage is exactly the same as it's been since 2007. Am I wrong?
Yep, same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. This is a cry for help. America is miserable. We don't know what to do. Have you guys heard about what happened in Coeur d'Alene in the town hall?
I'm very out of the loop. Everyone inform me.
Well, from my understanding, there was a woman in a town hall meeting, and she was forcibly removed by 3 unidentified.
Gabe,
What is their?
what
What are they called? They're not.
Private security?
Yeah, I guess they could be considered
Yeah.
private security, but she was forcibly removed from the meeting, allegedly after being asked to stop asking
Yeah.
questions and like zip tied.
From
And-
and from
Yeah.
what I understand, it was the sheriff had unidentified people, but from what I've heard kind of through the grapevine is that they were private security hired by the sheriff.
Can they do that?
No.
Oh, great.
I mean, sure, you can hire private security, but you can't take someone out, with force, zip tie them first. There's nothing at a town hall meeting. People are able to express their opinion depending on the format of how you're supposed to do it. Whether you're supposed to go up to the microphone or you can do it from the auditorium setting that they were in. But to forcibly remove someone and zip tie them and have a team that doesn't identify themselves as official police, there's a lot of violations here, I believe, around your rights as a human, but also we're very much entering, if not already in, the Gestapo type of regime where it's like, don't say anything bad. If you say something bad, we will arrest you and jail you. If you do anything, boom, off to anywhere else.
So can she like sue them? Can she do anything about that legally? I don't know much about the law.
I'm sure there is a lawsuit there.
I hope so.
I don't know the legality of how someone fights that, but I feel like I'm sure there are attorneys in Idaho that are just biting at the bit to get in there and say your rights were violated as a citizen. You were detained without being explained why. You were silenced. There, you're removed from your ability to express free speech. Like there's all of these things that I believe are in play for her to potentially pursue, whether directly through the council, through the sheriff, through the private service that was hired. I mean, I feel like it's a big mess, but I would imagine more of this is going to happen in other parts of the country. And that's why it's so important, by the way, to document, to film it, to tweet it, to post on Facebook, to Instagram,
I
whatever.
fully wouldn't have believed. I would have been like, okay, everyone is just, again, putting something out there so that we have really strong opinions
Right.
towards one specific
Right.
side, but, it's recorded.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make fun of some people now, since that is probably the only thing that's going to make me feel better, personally speaking. We received a comment from a casual user. This is on our Facebook page. It says, if men treated and talked to you the way women do to men, you would start crying and tie a final necktie. And to that I say, why do you think we started talking to you guys this way? Because there was no respect. It's misogyny running rampant. You think women wanted to act this way because we wanted to? No, it's completely a reaction to how you guys treat us. You call us crazy because you try to kill us.
I feel like, especially, men love making these. They're like, oh, could you imagine if a man made this video? And I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, because they literally do.
Yeah.
We have one running our country who has said some of the most derogatory things towards women. People are like, well, everyone talks like that with their friends. He's the president.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so then if you talk like that with your friends, then, now you understand why we're making this video where we make fun of you and talk to you the way that you apparently are telling us you talk.
And most of it is just like women, like specifically our page and what we post is like, obviously it's not for the MEN. Like it's not for them. It's for women. And they take that like such a personal attack. And thank God they do, because it just gives us something to talk about.
I really hate the oh, could you imagine? I'm like, I don't have to imagine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It
not.
straight up exists.
It's
Yeah.
not a far off scenario, brother.
Yeah. But it's
Like-
also funny to see all these guys who complain in the comments, and it's like, whoa, dude, you're supposed to be a man. You're supposed to be an alpha. You're supposed to be a tough guy.
Yeah, why are
Yet
you getting
you're
offended?
so sensitive, so triggered, so offended. I mean, again, thank you for the engagement, and also thank you for more material to talk about. But it really does show you how men need to go to therapy, okay? Because There's a lot of you in the comments that are very revealing about your problems and projecting your issues onto a comment section that you might be in the void talking to yourself and no one else can actually see it.
Yeah, because those comments get filtered.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
nobody besides us reads them.
Sucks to suck.
It just reminds me of like this one time I was at a bar and this dude, obviously belligerent, was sitting next to me and my friend and like tried to talk to us, and I literally was like, those guys over there would probably love to chit chat with you, but I don't. Oh yeah. And it's like, I don't have to imagine a man being horrible to me because they do it the second they don't get my approval
Yeah.
or consent. Love is blind. Gabe, take it away.
Oh boy, there is so much that has gone on in the most recent 3 episodes. The amount of douchebaggery coming from David and also Ben. The video that was that was mentioned, there were 2 original from March and then a most recent one in January when the trailer was released, and she was like, most of us in Minneapolis will know these terrible, terrible men.
When I was watching Love is Blind and it was like this video came out and they were being super vague about it, I was like, oh no, this man like raped her.
Yeah, I was thinking
like
the
that
same
was what I was
thing.
thinking. And then I watched the video, and I'm not excusing bad behavior, I just want to be clear. I feel like when I watched the video, what I got more from it is that he's like a boy.
Yeah,
and I was like, I mean, I'm probably
could
a
still be a
shitty
fuckboy.
dude.
You're
Yeah.
trying to publicly drag someone's entire character because they didn't like date you, or like I feel like that is
Yeah, I had some question marks around it, but I'm
Same.
sure he's a boy. I'm sure
Yeah, yeah.
all of these people
Absolutely.
I mean,
suck.
she, I think, went to the University of Minnesota, is what I gathered, and she met him on campus, and he was much older, dating much younger, and she basically was like, this is why I learned never to trust men, it's because of this guy. But I guess he and his friends were posting things on Snapchat and Instagram and stories that were alluding to things they had done with other people, potentially without consent, and sharing. And then also, because I went to the comments and I saw people commenting, and people were like, oh, is this the guy who got alcohol for minors and then
No,
make
this
them...
I
isn't
thought
the
that
same
was
guy.
the
This
No, no,
is
no,
not
no, I
the
know.
same guy.
That's Alex.
Yes.
But that hasn't been revealed yet. So that's why when the trailer, they're like, he's a liar, I'm like, oh, Madison might be talking about Alex.
Oh, instead of Mason.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that all of the stuff that's coming out about Alex is like horrific.
Okay, I've only
Yeah.
seen there was mention in a Facebook group that he was 20 hanging out with high school girls, I believe.
Yeah.
And there's lots of like buying alcohol for minors. An ex has come forward saying that he had a middle school fetish and would want her to dress up like a middle schooler.
Yeah.
And
Okay, like kinky schoolgirl,
like have braces on and like
oh, stop.
yeah.
Arrested Development as f- because he
Yeah.
would say like he was so bullied and this and that and this and that. This is what I mean.
It's a
Is like
weird
men,
power
we really
thing.
need to get men in therapy like early on, because the way that they let one formative experience develop and shape their entire personality and preference is actually crazy and should be studied. Let's pivot to something positive, okay? I feel like this episode has been very heavy, but in our defense, we read a story about like, you know, dating Trump supporters, and I think we're all just fired up at just existing in this country today. But the review I wanted to talk about was on our Bloodthirsty and Bewitched, which is an activity book for strange and unusual adults. And the review is from Jennifer Smith, and she says, perfect for witchy goals. I adore Bloodthirsty and Bewitched. It's a great way to have fun while sharpening your brain power. Word searches, coloring pages, crossword puzzles, a horror movie bingo card, and so much more. If you're into spooktacular adventures, you need this activity book. And really, I picked this review because I love the activity book and I want to talk about it, because when I tell you I had a hard time with the cryptograms, and I was like, Meredith is crazy. Like, how does anyone like figure these out? And then I had 2 glasses of wine, and suddenly I was like Albert Einstein. And I was like, I can figure this out.
What is a cryptogram?
Oh, okay.
Wait, how did I know that I've done one, but
So it's like
Is it the
you
one
have,
where
it's like basically like Hangman, where you can see all the blank letters, and there's like 1 or 2 letters that are given to you, and those
you
equate to a
learn
number.
The codes.
Well,
Love a
there's no code actually.
Are there not symbols at the bottom?
No,
Or
I mean that's a
numbers?
cipher, but I think With the cryptograms, it's just like, from what I remember from the books, it was literally just like blanks and then the numbers underneath, and then all the letters are above, but you have to find out which number it is.
Right.
But you only find it out like if you're like, I think this is either an A or an I. And once I got it, you guys, I was in it, and then I'm coloring every night. I just love it.
I'm a big crossword kind of guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do a crossword like every night.
Or like the word search, you know?
I
Those
like
are.
the word search.
I'm really big into those because anytime I would go to the dentist, they would have the
Highlights.
Yes, exactly. There we go. And in there, I would try to be one of the first people, if possible, to actually go through and like mark it on.
Or the like missing picture ones. Those were my
Oh,
favorite in
yeah. Like
highlights.
what's the difference?
If you're an adult now who was a kid who loved Highlights magazine at the doctor's office, these activity books are for you.
It really is. It's nice because I come home and I'm like, what can I do besides doom scrolling? And I can go on a word search. Or I have really been liking just coloring. I feel at peace.
Coloring is great. If you play the New York Times games every day, you will probably also love this activity book because especially with the games that are just daily, it's like, wow, I just finished Strands and now I don't get another one for a day. Well, guess what? There's word searches.
We have a solution for that. And all in all, I think just like, because when I see adult coloring books, like a lot of the times I feel like they're not super, like they're too intricate. Do you know
like
what I
weird
mean?
kaleidoscopes, and I'm like, well,
I
now
don't
I'm
want
more
this.
stressed out.
Yeah, like, and so I really like the simplicity of some of our, the illustrations in ours, that it is manageable, and then if I get bored, I just flip to another page and do something else, and basically buy the workbook if you don't have it. It's very fun. Okay, and to wrap up this super encouraging, positive episode, we are going to answer some of our questions from the Delve deck. You can find these on Borewalk.com, and they come in different decks. Very fun. Great for a first date. Gabe, take it away.
Oh,
Venting.
boy. Okay.
Oh, yes,
just a-
Gabe has the venting deck.
Venting. Boom. Okay, first one. I didn't look at it. I picked it out of the deck. What relatively minor annoyance drives you craziest?
If technology is slow, I rage when technology is slow. Like if I'm loading a website and it takes 1 second longer than I want it to, I am infuriated. And if something is like downloading and it's taking too much time, or like the time starts to go back up, I'm like, I'm on the verge of smashing my laptop. I'm on the verge of destroying this very expensive piece of property that I will have to pay to replace. But I'm like,
Yeah, yep, I've been there.
so, you know, that's the first one that comes to mind. But I'm sure there's many things like that for me.
Mine is just the other day, I'm thinking about this. I got into my car with my coat on and buckled, and then decided I wanted my coat off, but I couldn't. And then you feel congested and claustrophobic, and it's like, get my arm, and then you finally get free, and you're like, oh, okay. But then I'm mad that I had that big of an emotional reaction, but I can't stop it.
I also freaked out truly like 2 days ago. I have new kittens, and one of them hasn't been cuddly, and she was cuddling with me for the first time, and I was like so happy, and I didn't want her to move because I was like, this is a good bonding moment. But she was very warm, and I had a blanket on and socks on, and all of a sudden I was overheating, and I was like, Trevor, get my socks off. You have to take my socks off my feet. I was like, I'm freaking out. I'm losing my mind. And he was like, okay, and like took my socks off for me. And I was like, and roll up the blanket. You need to roll it up. Like, I was like losing my mind just because I didn't want to move a kid. But I stand by my big reaction, and you know what? He did it for me. So
There's nothing quite like being overstimulated.
Yeah.
Like that will take me from 0 to 100.
yeah.
That.
I think mine would be when you go up to a light and you're waiting there to make a left turn, and the person in front of you is not aware of the turns that have happened, and then you're like, honk, and then they do it, and then they get through the yellow, and then you get stuck on the red. When this whole time you could have made it through on the left turn without
I just run that red.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can I admit something really bad?
No, it's fine. I've done it before.
There's been times where if I know the person in front of me is a pussy, and they're not going to go, I will go before they do and go in front of them because they're holding up traffic that bad that I'm like, I could do this in 5 seconds flat. So I will literally cut.
See, I've never done
cut
that.
from
That
behind.
is risky. Very
If you
very
had an
crazy.
opening,
Yeah.
Hey, you got to have balls. You're getting stuck in that red light.
If
I
you
know.
are driving, especially in LA, you need to take unprotected left turns. People who do not do those, I am like, get three.
You will-
3 cars. When that has turned yellow,
If you're
3 cars
if
are
you're in
getting
a
through.
turn lane and you like if you get that green arrow, those are few and far in between. Do
Yes.
not waste them. Your
Yeah.
foot better be
Waste
ready to
them.
go on the accelerator the
Mm-hmm.
second. And if you don't, you have a line of cars who have your license plate memorized. I'm following you home. I'm not. I'm not. But I'm definitely gonna wish bad things upon you later at night.
You have
Okay.
to be comfortable with that. If you're like, should I move to LA? I don't know. Will you take an unprotected left turn? And if the answer is no, don't move
Don't
here.
come here. All right.
All right, let's do some joy.
Let's do fun.
All right, what helps you recharge? What helps me recharge is having a day where there is literally nothing on my schedule at all. Because I feel like I frequently have things to do. And even if it's like a social thing, like even if it's a fun thing, like I would say that I am an extroverted person. I'm kind of like right on the edge between the two. And so I do like going to social events, but if I've had like a lot going on, a recharge for me is like a day where the calendar is literally blank and I'm like, I can wake up whenever I want, have some coffee, like chill and do nothing. And I feel like those are the days where like, yeah, there's nothing on my calendar, but those might be days where I'm like, oh, I could get some like good writing done today, or like I'll actually have some creative inspiration because I'm not like freaking out about whatever the hell I have to go to. So I think having a blank schedule is what helps me recharge.
I would say maybe a hike. I really like being in nature. And like yesterday, I was in a really foul mood. And then I got on a hiking trail and I was like, oh, thank you, nature. And it's just like the vitamin D, I think, and the way that it smells. And you just, I can go into my little dystopian, I'm adventuring now. And that makes me feel really good.
I like that.
Yeah.
The way that I recharge is like definitely a day of nothing that I'm like obligated to do. It's kind of just like left in the open. But my go-to would probably be going to the park and playing with my dogs. And also with them is just like, oh, I'm kind of like in this like half sleepy mood, you know? And I like lay on the couch and then I've got something passively playing on TV and then the dogs come up on the couch and like nap. And I'm like, maybe I nap, and that's a great way to recharge too. But also it's just kind of this like moment of like, great, I don't have to be anywhere, I don't have to go anywhere. They're content, I'm content. And then it's just like, just endorphins, just like running through my body, you know? And I'm like, I can now get up and do something later on tonight and be totally like fully charged.
Sometimes just need like an hour of like no expectations at all, and suddenly I can do it all. Alrighty. I have the original Delve deck, and my question is, what frivolous hill are you willing to die on?
My frivolous hill is that if you like eating shrimp, then you would also like eating cockroaches, because shrimp are the cockroaches of the ocean, and I stand by this, and I will die on this hill, and I will have this argument as many times as you all want. Shrimp are the cockroaches of the ocean.
Oh, not what I thought was gonna come out of your mouth.
It sounds familiar, but yeah.
I just
You're
thought,
like, she's probably, I've probably
yeah,
gone
I
on this
feel like
rant
I've
to
said
you.
this before.
I have.
Or yeah, I've heard it before.
I think that Kindles should be outlawed because our generation is so digital, and I think that the aliens are going to come back and kill us all. And if we want any recollection, no, because if we want historians to ever know what kind of people we were, we can't rely on Kindles. And so we need physical copies of art, and physical copies of art are dying everywhere. And so I think abandon the Kindles, give us back the books.
I actually kind of agree with that.
I feel bad for the trees, but also recycling.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. I have that thought sometimes where I'm like, everything that we're documenting is online, and if we go like full on dystopia and all of that just like burns to the ground, I'm like,
Yep.
what are we gonna have to document?
Yeah.
My
any
journals,
of
my
this?
Polaroids, my books, those are my North Star. I will never abandon them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
if you don't
my
have
frivolous
power,
hole.
you can't turn on a device, and if you can't turn on the device, you can't see what's inside.
Yeah.
But if you have a Polaroid notebook, you will never be bored. You can make your own little TV shows.
Oh.
Like a little flip book.
Oh.
A lot of Polaroid film, though, and how would we do that if we don't have tech? Anyway,
That's a good point.
yeah, we're kind of fucked regardless.
My frivolous hill is I would say it's okay to have a drink before noon.
Before noon.
Before noon. Because most people say, like, oh, before 5, whatever. But I'm thinking, like,
Gabe's like, I've had 5 already today.
I'm already
Whiskey on the way
3
in.
deep, dude. No, I just feel like, you know, if you, like, go to brunch, obviously, like, people are like, oh, brunch. But you can't, like, brunch every day because that's just, like, not sustainable. But I also feel like a lot of people are like, oh, like, you can have a drink before 5. But it's like, we made this 5 kind of, like, arbitrary deadline.
5 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Right. But it's like, oh, God.
You're like, it's noon somewhere.
It's noon somewhere. But also, like, if you wake up, and not to see, like, oh, alcoholism or anything like that, but I'm just saying, like, you wake up and you're like, I want to make a cocktail. Or, you know, like, if I was on vacation, you know, it would be totally fine to have that, right?
Yeah, I
Or if
agree
I
on
wanna make-
vacation.
I'm not saying every day, though. I'm just saying, like, if you wake up, and obviously you've been awake for a little bit, you know, you're like, oh, you know what? I feel like having a beer with my lunch. Or I feel like making kind of a refreshing cocktail in the summer. Or I feel like making, like, a coffee cocktail thing, you know, midway through the morning, early afternoon to kind of, like, give me the best of both worlds. I think that's totally okay. And it shouldn't, again, not saying, like, you should be an alcoholic and drink every day, but I am saying, like, on the off chance you're like, you know what? This first part of the day was fucking crazy. I just do want to decompress with something.
I can get behind that. One time I took a final in college. It was online during COVID, and it was the worst final I've ever taken in my life. And as soon as I was done, I went and I ripped 3 shots of tequila, and I had a great rest of my day.
Boom.
No, alcoholism runs in my family, so we should put a pin in that one. Have a drink before noon if you want,
Yeah.
and don't take that advice from us. Do it because you thought of it yourself.
I think if you got shit to do or you got to drive somewhere, don't do that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Don't operate machinery after having a drink.
We feel these aren't needed to be specified upon, but with the state of the world, I'm realizing common sense and critical thinking are not things most people possess. So yeah, don't operate machinery if you drink. Use your best discretion, guys. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much. I hope this was the most fun episode you've literally ever heard in your entire life. And join us next week when we probably talk about similar things. I would say they're going to be more fun, but I can't promise that at the way the world's going. So anyway, we love you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Okay, goodbye.